While you're doing that, we're going to be bringing on the airwaves a good friend of the program, New Orleans native who has been covering politics right here in the local area, but also nationally for many years. And now he writes for the New Orleans Advocate and also for National Review Online, and just did a series of pieces on Governor Bobby Jindal and his potential presidential prospects. My pleasure to bring on our friend Quin Hillyer, who's with us here on the Ringside Hotline. And Quin, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Stephen. How y'all doing?
All right.
Fine, Quin.
Great, Quin. Thanks for being with us. And Quin, let's start with, I guess, a response from, I guess, people around the country to your two columns that you wrote about Bobby Jindal. What have you heard?
Well, it shows, or the lack of response shows that Bobby Jindal has some work to do, because I haven't gotten a lot of feedback except from the people that I've talked to in order to write the story. I mean, there's been some comments on the National Review site and a couple of comments at Lucian.com, and basically you can't find anybody really in the National Republican Party or the National Conservative Movement that does not think highly of Bobby Jindal. Everybody thinks highly of him, but he still hasn't developed enough of a buzz as a presidential candidate so that if you write something like what I wrote, it gets people excited. Now he is working very hard to change that, and that was part of the reason that I wrote it in the first place. Is because he is really out there, really working and trying to raise his profile and make up for a bad impression he left in 2009 State of the Union address.
Boy, he did. He gave a horrible response at that point, and he's been, as you say, Quin, trying to recover from that ever since. But here's the thing, and I know Steve wants to chime in as well, and you're correct. He has been working hard. He's out there trying to change the image. He's out there politicking, and what I'm concerned about is he's governor of our state. I mean, we have got a crisis here in New Orleans as far as a crime. We just talked about a 2-hour response to a major crime situation in the Uptown area. We've got a host of problems that the legislature is trying to tackle. He should be here in Baton Rouge in the state dealing with the legislative session, dealing with our problems. He's being paid by the people of Louisiana to do a job. And he is out there promoting his presidential campaign. And that, I just can't get past that. I mean, that really bothers me. Your thoughts?
Well, a couple of thoughts. First of all, I've got to talk about that 2-hour wait. I heard your earlier caller who was saying that, that if you called Domino's Pizza, somebody would get there a lot quicker. And he had half the answer, because what you do is you call Domino's Pizza, and then you call the police department and tell them that there's a pizza waiting for them. Then they'll get there a lot quicker than 2 hours. But sorry about that aside. But anyway, as far as Jindal going out and campaigning all over the country, look, if you're going to run for president, that's what you got to do. I don't think it necessarily means that he is ignoring Louisiana. Here's the thing: there are a lot of bad optics with him constantly showing, tremendous ambition and not being at the state fairs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On the other hand, as I reported, Louisiana is doing phenomenally well overall. I mean, the economy in Louisiana is, by every measure, historically, it is booming. The educational attainment of its students is going up. There haven't been any tax increases. There have been tax cuts. Industrial recruitment and development has been going pretty much spectacularly well, even though, of course, you've lost some stuff at Michoud and at Avondale. But overall, its ratings are great. Its bond ratings are great. So you've got to be doing something right.
Steve, let me let you jump in here. How would you respond to that? Quin says, things are going great here in Louisiana. You got to give Jindal credit for that.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure. Well, first of all, let me thank Quinn for being on the show. I mean, I'm a real admirer of Quinn ever since he was writing for Gambit, and he took some big, powerful stands recently when David Vitter was running for U.S. Senate, and I really admire him for that and for a lot of other things. I disagree with Quinn on both fronts. Number one, I don't think Louisiana is doing as great as Governor Bobby Jindal is saying that we're doing. I'm not going to say that economically. I mean, yes, economically, I think that we have made some great gains. However, that's down the road. Right now, I don't think we're seeing it. Unemployment, yes, is dropped down to 4.7 last time I looked. Then again, part of the reason why we've done as well as we have, I believe, is because of the Katrina money, which is actually beginning to dry up. Also because of the just the natural gas oil prices and also the liquid gas prices. I mean, which have been just very, very conducive to growth here in Louisiana and Texas. So if you look at our health care, if you look at just the standard of living, you look at almost every other criteria. We're still way at the very end, even in education. So yeah, I think that yes, I think Governor Jindal does a really fine job promoting Louisiana, which I think he did a very good job on CNBC about 2 weeks ago, and that kind of stuff I think he needs to do more. And nobody can do it as well as he can. But in terms of saying that we're doing as great as we are, I don't know. I talk to people in the jobs market. I talk to people who basically who are involved with trying to get people jobs. They don't see it. And we're talking about major industries and all, and they don't see it. Maybe down the road. Hopefully down the road.
504-556-9696 to join us. Jeff Crouere here. It's Steve Sabadowski is with us, publisher of Bayoubuzz.com. Quin Hillyer is with us, contributing editor for National Review, talking about Bobby Jindal. Quinn wrote a series of pieces about the governor for The Advocate and also National Review. Bobby Jindal is a player. Quinn, what I found interesting is you interviewed these sort of real heavyweights in the conservative movement, Morton Blackwell and others, and they really rate Bobby Jindal highly. Explain to us, if you could, why do you think he's given such high marks by these sort of bigwigs in the conservative movement?
Well, partly because, I mean, just going by neutral statistics, Louisiana has done extremely well. I mean, 4.9% unemployment is terrific. Growth of 50% greater than the national growth is terrific. Job growth, the fourth best in the nation for the last 6 years, is terrific. Doubling of the number of students who read at grade level and who do math at grade level is terrific. And they look at that and they see they can point to conservative policies that they think there is a correlation between the conservative policies and these good outcomes. And so they say, hey, look, the guy's obviously very bright. He's got a good story to tell, and he hasn't made any national enemies, unlike just about every other politician looking at moving into the big time. His enemies are all local. And I'm not saying that there's no reason for people locally to sort of resent some of the way that he's dealt with people or that his staff has dealt with people over the years. And I would put that in my piece. I'm just saying the national folks,
right,
what they see and what they explain is they see a success story and they see conservative policies. They put the two together. They put it together with a guy who they think can hold his own in a debate with anybody, and they say, okay, he's got potential. They're not saying he's the guy. He's definitely one of 5 or 6 people who are clearly in that top tier.
My theory is he could be really auditioning for VP, and he seems to be going on the attack more, and of course that's sort of the historic role, Quinn, for a vice presidential nominee. how well can that person really go after the other side? And I think he's sharpening his rhetoric as far as the Democrats go. But let's take some calls. Gentlemen, we've got some folks that want to chime in here. You can join the conversation at 504-556-9696. Jeff Cruaire, Quin Hillyer, Steve Sabadowski with us talking about Bobby Jindal. We're joined by Brian in Metairie. How you doing, Brian? Good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys. It's a shame y'all inside because it's beautiful outside.
All right, rub it in, Brian. Rub it in.
Yes, and I'm out here barbecuing some redfish by the lake. My question, a number of times through the past 12 months, I've heard Mark Levin talk very highly about the governor. But it just seems if somebody would come down here to New Orleans and just make a couple of phone calls to local radio stations, not television stations, but radio stations, you might find out that we're still looking for the governor that kind of disappeared on book tours but never came back. It's just like the rest of the country doesn't understand the problem we have with a missing in action governor. I was just wondering, what is a disconnect on how they not?
Well, the reason there's a disconnect, Brian, is they're not here. They don't know that he is so disconnected from what's going on in Louisiana. They don't know that he really shuns local media. They're not aware of that. So
15 minutes of phone calls could do that.
Well, I know. I mean, they see him on Fox News and they like what they hear, but they don't know that he's not really giving that kind of attention to local media. But good point, Brian. Very good point. And I appreciate your call. Steve, your thoughts?
Sure, Quinn, and this is not a debate, but let me just, on Bayoubuzz right now, there's a column that we posted in terms of General's voucher program. And basically, I'm just reading what was written. 45% of Louisiana voucher students attend failing schools. Voucher students in Louisiana score 30 points lower on standardized tests than their peers in public schools. More than 30% of voucher schools in Louisiana fail to comply with the state's auditing requirements. I'm not against vouchers.
But Steve, hang on. Yeah. That doesn't address what Brian brought up. Brian was talking about.
I'm not talking about Brian.
I just want to talk about what Brian brought up for a second. Then we'll get back to that, Quinn, because I think what he brought up was an important point. In that people here don't see him, he doesn't give attention to local media, and that is maybe one of the reasons for his problems here. Do you concur with that, Quinn?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I mean, look. He has a story to tell, and look, there are neutral statistics that show Louisiana, even if people want to grumble, Louisiana is doing better than just about every state in the nation in so many different ways. And some of that, not all of it, the governor usually gets too much credit and too much blame, but some of it is attributable to the governor. But he hasn't been out there telling the story. He certainly in fact, he's been less accessible, I believe, to local media than he's been to me or to the national media. I mean, I've heard that story again and again. I've heard local people that, they've been longtime friends that say they can't get through to him. So that is a legitimate complaint, but it's a complaint of style, not of substance, because it doesn't get to the question of whether he is actually passing and implementing policy change and whether or not those policy changes.
But it could be a good explanation for why his popularity is where it is here locally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. It is a very good explanation, and the caller Brian was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I have seen indications lately that Jindal is that the administration is starting to open up again, both. Not just the national media, but the local media. And I think they're going to have a new attitude because I think they realize that they've stumbled a little on there.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Steve, go ahead, sir.
Well, the thing is that in terms of substance, it's not just style. It is substance. The fact is that Governor Jindal, from early on, says one thing and does something else. And that's the real problem. It's his credibility. And that's something the national media hasn't picked up on yet. I mean, when he goes around the nation saying dissing Obamacare and stimulus. But then he goes and he around the state, an article that I actually reported on and actually broke the story, where he was showcasing these big checks, and he didn't tell people about where this money was coming from, and it was coming from stimulus. You know, that gets into the real core of a person. And I could tell you time after time after time where I have seen, I mean, you know, Brian talks about books. I mean, here's a guy who, again, I've said this on this radio show, here's a guy who said, we don't have a second to waste. And then he's wasting his time writing a book, the same book he says he's not going to write. You know, so I'm sorry, I need to plug this in, but yeah. Please.
So you think it's more than just style? So
sure.
It's substance as well.
It's substance of a man. It's substance of a man, and that is the thing I think people really feel. They've seen just so many things that he has tried to explain away. You know, the situation with the money in his wife in terms of the contributions to his wife's organization. I could list about a zillion things.
All right. Instead of doing that, hang on with us because we're up against the clock, and we got to take a brief time out. Hopefully, Steve and Quinn can stay with us. I'd like to do this for another segment if we can, and take more of your phone calls at 504-556-9696 as we explore the political standing of Governor Bobby Jindal, both locally and nationally, and why is there a big disconnect between how locals feel about Governor Jindal and all these national Republican leaders who seem to be in love with him. We'll get into more of that, but first at 10 o'clock, time to get the latest from NBC News. WGSO 990 AM, New Orleans, Louisiana, 60 years of speaking easy New Orleans style.
NBC News Radio, I'm Luke Russert. Malaysia has narrowed the search for a downed jetliner to an area the size of Alaska in the southern Indian Ocean. But NBC's Ian Williams...
Hey, Steve?
We're on right now in terms of it's on the internet. So,
okay, good.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've got some stuff I got to do. But are you good to go for another segment?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to let you know that right now it's being broadcast.
Good. Okay. Well, I'll try not to say anything bad.
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah.
All right.
May soon become a recovery mission.
The Navy says a sailor was shot and killed aboard a guided missile destroyer docked at a naval station in Norfolk, Virginia last night. Security forces then killed the civilian suspected of being the shooter. Home prices were up in January compared to the same month last year. Stocks opened higher on that news. This is NBC News Radio. Springtime in New England is a snowy affair. The National Weather Service is forecasting as much as a foot of snow in some areas along Cape Cod by tomorrow, with 3 to 5 inches of snow forecast for Boston. Grocery bills are going up. NBC's Kerry Sanders says there is sticker shock at the supermarket.
A new report by the Bureau of Labor Statistics says food prices are up 0.4% in just the first month of this year. That's the biggest increase since September 2011.
A smokers advocacy group says it has filed a lawsuit against New York City seeking to overturn the city's ban on electronic cigarettes. The Coast Guard is preparing to reopen a key shipping route days after an oil spill dumped 4,000 barrels of fuel into Galveston Bay in Texas. The Houston Ship Channel shut down Saturday when an inland oil barge and cargo ship collided. I'm Luke Russert, NBC News Radio.
What do you mean you got there exactly on time?
Ever since we started using Fleetmatics to keep track of our trucks and vans, our business has been running really smoothly.
Are you telling me you've cut your fuel cost?
The boss doesn't have anything to yell about anymore, but some habits are hard to break.
Oh, great. Another call from a happy customer.
Fleetmatics takes the drama out of business. Make fleet tracking more intelligent with real-time tracking, fuel monitoring, and more. Visit fleetmatics.com/start or call 1-877-350-DEMO for intelligence at work.
If diabetes has you at the corner of a lot to figure out and a little help would be nice, you can count on Walgreens. With 24/7 expert pharmacy advice on medications and tracking your glucose, plus savings on prescriptions and supplies, we'll help you live well with diabetes. So talk to your Walgreens pharmacist today, because taking control of diabetes takes an extra hand. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
Wall Street continues to rise, with consumers feeling a bit better these days. The reading from the Conference Board for March was stronger than expected and a big improvement over February. Home prices are headed lower for the third month in a row. The 20-city reading from S&P Case-Shiller declined in January, a time of bad weather in many parts of the country. Home prices are expected to show moderating gains, but still up 23% from the bottom in 2012. The first quarter of the year is winding down, and earnings season isn't too far behind. Rough winter weather pounded a lot of the country in January, February, and March, which meant consumers were stuck at home and not out spending. According to USA Today, overall corporate profits are projected to rise a little over 2% for the first quarter. That compares to growth of almost 10% during the fourth quarter. On Wall Street, the Dow had been up by triple digits. Now it's gaining 48 points. The Nasdaq up 9, the S&P up by 4. I'm Ann Cates in the newsroom at MarketWatch.com.
Identity thieves are filing false tax returns using real people's information. They've stolen nearly $4 billion from taxpayers, prompting former Mayor Rudy Giuliani to issue this important LifeLock identity theft message.
As a mayor and former federal prosecutor, fighting crime has always been my mission. Now I'm taking on identity theft. The problem has become such a global concern, you can no longer think it will never happen to you. I protect myself with LifeLock Ultimate, and you should too.
Identity thieves know that virtually everything they need to steal your identity and even your life savings is on your tax forms. No one, not even law enforcement, can stop all identity theft. You need to arm yourself with LifeLock Ultimate. Visit LifeLock.com and enter promo code AWARE or call and mention AWARE to save 10% on your LifeLock Ultimate membership. 800-611-7050. 800-611-7050. 800-611-7050.
Network does not cover all transactions.
Nothing to do to save his life, call his wife in. Nothing to say but what.
Steve, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we lost the video.
No, I turned it off.
Turn it off. Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
It's going back on right now.
Okay.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Ringside Politics for the Punch with Jeff Crouer. WGSO 990 and WGSO.com wants you to get in on the conversation. Call us at 556-9696. Now, sit back and get ready for Ringside Politics with a Punch. Here's your host from ABC 26, the Conifer, the Kenner Star, KTV, City Business, and WLAE. It's WGSO's own Jeff Crouer.
All right. One more segment with our special guests as we delve into the current standing, both nationally and locally, of Governor Bobby Jindal, and looking at his potential, viability as a presidential candidate in the 2016 race. Interesting email coming in here from Daryl. Daryl says this: Jindal is the establishment's man. The Republican Party establishment leaders want a man who will carry the party line. Jindal, a young minority Republican, will do what he is told. He fills the bill. That's Daryl's comments, and you can email them at jeff@wgso.com. You can also call in to 504-556-9696. Joined by our friend Steve Sebaldowski. He's a Ringside All-Star. He's also a publisher of Bayoubuzz.com. And also a native of New Orleans. He is right now working as contributing editor for National Review. Just posted a piece at National Review, and also he is a columnist for the New Orleans Advocate. Quin Hillyer is with us on the Ringside Hotline. And gentlemen, welcome back. And any comments before we take some more calls, guys?
Yeah, let me throw one thing in there. I don't want to say that I'm a total cheerleader for Bobby Jindal. There has been some overselling that goes on, and started real early with the ethics reform, where he passed ethics reforms, but there were major loopholes, and they basically don't touch the executive branch at all, and there were even loopholes for the legislature. So, you've got critics that say, see, there it's all show and no substance. On the other hand, even though there were loopholes, it has been recognized nationally as, by groups that follow these things as a significant reform. And I guess while it didn't completely solve the ethics problems of state government, you can say this: he's made it a lot harder for legislators to be corrupt. They have to work harder to get away with corruption, and that is an important step. So there's a little of the positive and the negative. It's not all that it's cracked up to be, but hey, it is better than it was. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that's a fair comment, Steve.
Yeah, and that, I think, really gets to the real subject I was talking about. Why is it that the governor basically carved out this exception for his administration? I mean, it becomes, when he does that, and when he did that, it makes his whole ethics reform to appear very suspect. People start asking why. He also, Louisiana was considered to be number 50 in the nation on one of the, and I'll say liberal, although they've gone after conservatives too, national studies, and basically it was because of that. It's what I call just the incredible inconsistency that people are seeing over the last, say, almost 7 years. Starting with his very speech when he became governor, when he said that he was going to. There were governors who put themselves first before the state. Well, nobody. I'm not going to criticize Jindal and say that he is corrupt. Okay, nothing has indicated that, but certainly he hasn't put himself first. At least the state first. He's put himself first from day one.
All right, guys, let's take some more calls. 504-556-9696 is WGSO. You're listening to Ringside with the weekdays 7 to 11. Jeff Cruier here. We're joined by Steve Saladowski of Bayoubuzz.com, Quin Hillyer of National Review, and the New Orleans Advocate. Let's go to James in Metairie. All right, James, good morning, sir.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning to you, and hello to your guest. Mr. Hillyer, a couple of general observations before I go on here. After looking at your piece in National Review, which I guess makes you part of the national media, I'm not sure if your column is a reflection of your incompetence or it's just a piece of propaganda designed to deceive the unknowing American public. You mentioned about phenomenal accomplishments of Bobby Jindal. And then this headline, maybe the only factual part of the whole column, Jindal takes the stage. This is fiction, Mr. Hillyer. You talk about, the subheading should have been 6.5 years of wasted effort in Baton Rouge. You mentioned education, and Steve pointed out some things that he just picked up. Let's talk about education from top to bottom, higher education. You seem to be very removed from the problem wherever you're sitting, somewhere on the East Coast, maybe, Mr. Hillyer. But
no, he's in Louisiana right now.
I'm sorry?
He's actually driving to Baton Rouge, but go ahead.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, where he was, whatever, writing. Okay, $700 million has been removed from the state's higher education budget since Bobby Jindal became governor. When LSU played Alabama last fall, even the local Baton Rouge paper pointed out the difference between the University of Alabama and LSU. A loss of faculty at LSU, and research dollars went away with that loss of faculty. And then, as Steve pointed out, instances of elementary education. Real quickly, one example, and I don't know who does your research, Mr. Hillyer, but they're not doing their part to bolster your credibility. There's an article in the Baton Rouge Advocate, January 15th, 2014. Headline, Louisiana Public Schools back to 49th in academics. The grade is a D-, Mr. Hillyer, which is up from an F from the three previous years. Now, is that an achievement?
All right, hang on, James. James, let's get Quinn a chance to respond, okay? Hang on with us.
Okay, thank you. First of all, there's a difference between fiction and different arguments. You haven't refuted a single fact that I published in either of those two columns, not a single fact that I published. You were pulling out different statistics. You're making arguments. They might be valid arguments, but don't accuse me of fiction, because everything that I reported was absolutely accurate. Now, on the higher ed budget, I don't know that as well as I know the rest, but the rest of what I published, because I didn't talk about higher ed. I don't write about things that I do not know fully about, but I do know this. There was, and this is where Stephen is right, there was an inflow of federal money post-Katrina and to a lesser extent post-BP that swelled the state budget unnaturally from $23 billion to $30 billion. And then when that money dried up, the amount that is now coming in is about $25 billion. So yes, from the peak of $30 billion for the entire budget, which was an unnatural peak, he's had to cut $5 billion, and some of that came from higher ed. But it didn't come from higher ed's normal range. It came from higher ed's amount of money that it got for a 1 or 2 year period during the peak. So, you know, when you compare apples to apples, higher ed now compared to what higher ed was, I don't have the exact numbers, which is why I didn't write it, but I did look at it briefly, and the numbers now compared to 7 years ago are not that different. So, you know, you can fudge numbers, but it's not as bad as the caller says, even though he does make a point. Clearly, from the peak, higher ed dollars have dropped, and I will give them that.
All right, quick response, James, and we got to roll.
Well, you know, recently the column or the articles that appeared in NOLA.com and in the Advocate talked about 4th and 8th grade students, again, registering 48th and 50th in the country. And then we had a Tea Party phony patriot come on here and say, well, what's the difference between 50th and being number 1? It's only 5%. And to which I pointed out the difference between a chimpanzee and a human being is only 1% of the DNA. That's a phony argument by these people. They love failure. They love being 50th because a lot of people in this state are just flat out lazy.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's James in Metairie. Final words, Steve, your response?
Well, first of all, Quinn, thank you very much for being on our program. Again, I have tremendous respect for your writing, and I'm really happy that you're writing for the Advocate now. And I look forward to, and maybe you'll get a lot better information from the governor's office than perhaps many of us. I quite frankly, and let me just say this, I quite frankly have asked Louisiana Economic Development and also the Workforce Commission to provide information to me, okay, that I can provide to our audience. And
right.
I haven't gotten it, and I have to tell you, I mean, that's that's sad. That's really sad.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to promote that, Steve. You're trying to spread a positive message, and they're not giving you that opportunity. Unfortunately, we got to roll. Steve Salbadowski, thank you. Quin Hillyer, thank you. We'll do it again. Great discussion, gentlemen. We're going to bring on another great guest who's going to be joining us next.